Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern with my special guest, Dr. Clay Hammonds. Today's Velocity RX podcast is on pitch count. Parents, it is not an end all be all measure to assume your child will be safe if he's under a certain pitch count. It's not enough. It's a good start, but it's not enough. And today's show is dedicated to all the reasons why it's not enough, and then some of our thoughts on what could make it better or other measures that can make it better with with other things other than just pitch count. So, Clay, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thanks for
Thank you
being
for
on
having me
again.
on.
Absolutely. So, I talk to parents all the time, my Velocity RX program, and they fill out a form and they'll put there's a whole section in there if your child is injured and it's almost like they get on the phone and they're definitely like tentative. Well, he stayed under the pitch count. He was under the pitch count. He was under the pitch count. Never once I heard, well, he threw 262 pitches, like we talked about one of those podcasts,
Right.
right? And my answer always is, well, pitch count's not enough because pitch count doesn't measure, and we'll get into this strength, range of motion, mechanics, fatigue, none of that stuff. It's just an arbitrary number. So technically, in my opinion, two pitches could be detrimental, whereas 50 might not be detrimental.
Right.
So what say you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of other things that go into account other than the pitch count. I think it's important to keep up with pitch count. I think, especially in the younger ranks, the youth ranks, that people don't do a very good job of that and need to do better. I've seen it firsthand.
Yes,
Um,
you have.
many times, which we've kind of put that out there. So that pitch count makes me angry. But then people don't know what they don't know in terms of what we know. And so there's a lot more that goes into it in terms of measuring strength, and there's great research out there to support it, especially for the shoulder strength of um, reducing the injury risk on the shoulder and the elbow. And so we'll kind of talk more about that, and a lot of other measurables that can go into play. And pitch count isn't everything. Like how many, yeah, your pitch count's good, but then are you going and playing catcher right after that, or are you going and playing shortstop right after that? So those are things that you got to kind of keep in mind too, in order to prevent injury. Like you can't go throw 90 pitches on a Monday, catch 2 games between then, and then go throw another 80 on Friday. Like that's
Too much
basically,
volume.
yeah, that's going to get you hurt. You know, maybe not the first month of the season, but later on, all those throws kind of tally in. And then I think some other things that you're doing as well. How much are you long tossing during the week? How far are you long tossing during the week? Um, all those things kind of factor in. So pitch count's good, just not the end all be all.
Agreed. So, there are some sports that have, mostly on the combat end, you know, Ultimate Fighting Championship, boxing, have pre-game or pre-day before physicals, right? They have a weigh-in, heart, lung. They make sure that the boxer, and I've been a part of those in the Bellator era. I trained a fighter, and people have failed those physicals, right? And then have not been allowed to fight. There's nothing in the pregame of baseball, right? A kid can, let's just, kids are playing all different sports. Let's just say a summer, right? I know a kid who's got, he's playing in, he's got hockey camp during the day, gets down at 5 o'clock, gets in the car, dad drives him to the Little League game at 7, right? It's a pitch. How do we know that kid even has the range of motion? Is he fatigued? Is his arm healthy enough to throw? Is there any strength? I think the pregame is if we had a simple movement test, strength test, range of motion screen that you
Mhm.
could teach a coach to do or a parent to do to make sure that his child can throw safely at the outset, we would save so many app injuries because then it wouldn't matter what the pitch count is if that person doesn't have the strength or range of motion before he even started, he's going to get hurt.
Yeah, I agree. That, and then I'll kind of piggyback on that, and a good proper warm up, not just throwing and warming up, but doing some spinal extension, doing some squatting to start getting your legs activated. Um, as you said before, make sure you have the proper range of motion. Do you have 180 degrees of shoulder rotation? Very, very simple screen, right? Does this measure 180 degrees or not? And then, maybe you can do some stretching or, some trigger point release or things like that can be taught to you that you can do on your own prior to when you throw. I think just those three simple things, warming up, getting muscles activated are also really big before you throw.
Now you're much more in the little guy, meaning under, under high school age
Yeah,
leagues and travel ball. What do you see? First of all, I can guarantee what you just mentioned, you probably have seen no one but your kids do, right? I mean,
right,
that's no one's doing that. But
right,
what do you see kids like, things that I have seen and is, if a team will go out, let's say it's the third inning, the pitcher's struggling, and they'll bring the left fielder in to pitch. He hasn't thrown. You see it in the Little League World Series on live TV. They're going to bring the left fielder in. He hasn't thrown a ball. His warm ups is only going to be the 7 or 8 warm up pitches he's going to get on the mound. Like that to
right.
me, someone should stop that. Like there needs to be rule changes. Like okay, there's a possibility that little Johnny could pitch, so we're gonna hold him out of this inning, and he doesn't lose his, he's not out of the game to warm up properly. I mean,
Yeah.
there has to be rule changes, I think, at the youth level.
Yeah, we will. As far as our team, a lot of times, I mean, just based on game flow, I mean, sometimes that happens, in little league, especially on our team too. Sometimes, I mean, even on our team, it, kind of happens. But what I think, try to do is if we know a kid maybe nearing, the end of his start, or, you can tell he's kind of laboring a little bit and like, or, his pitch counts, like, okay, he's getting near 60 to 70 pitches, like, okay, this inning's going to be it. We will sub, bring him in, and go get him warmed up. I think I think in the youth level, I mean, usually travel teams are carrying, 12 kids, 11 kids. You can always sub somebody in there in that left field spot if your left fielder's if he's the next guy up and you want in, sub in. So start pre-planning it. Don't just wait until, oh no, he's at 75 pitches, we got to take him out, pull him, and you don't have a plan in place.
So in most of your leagues, there is open substitution where someone can go in and come back out and go back into the game.
Yes,
Oh, well, that's
yes,
that's good. Okay.
yeah. And so I think in the youth levels, that's, if I'm coaching or if I had advice for coaches for that, that would be the thing to do, is start pre-planning. I mean, you know, there are times, I think more rare than not, that you have to, you have an emergency, like, hey, this kid just doesn't have it, and we don't have anybody warmed up, and these two guys on my bench aren't, the guys that I want in. Let's go get him a good warm up in, and maybe talk to the umpire and be like, hey, I'm gonna give he's cold. You mind if I get some extra time with him? I think that's a better way to approach that. But obviously, like you said, you want to try to avoid that if possible. And I think the best way to avoid it is pre-planning. Like we know Johnny's at he's at 58 pitches going into this inning. I don't want him going over 70. Right. That's probably my max for him. He may get one to two batters in. I'm going to have um, Billy warming up the previous at bat to be ready to go in.
Yeah, I think with that saying, like, let's just say, we want to keep someone under 60 pitches for 6 innings or whatever.
Hmm.
If he throws 30 in the first inning, I mean, you got to look at,
Yeah.
there's no way he should even come close.
The
One
third
more
inning.
inning might be enough, right? Because he is
Right.
obviously struggling with control, obviously struggling with command, and that's what bothers me about the number. It's just it doesn't take into account efficiency, right? It's just because look at everyone's going to struggle. They're not major leaguers, but It's our job as coaches to see that, and there has to be a movement and mechanical factor to that pitch count number. Like you can't, kid throws, walks four people in a row, which I have seen. You
Oh,
know, that there's something, maybe it's time that, we call it a day, even if he's at 30 pitches. Like
yeah.
he doesn't have the skill level, in my opinion, at that age to work out of it, right? Like there's something drastically going wrong. And at that point, the test just shouldn't be, well, it's your mechanics, how's the range of motion? What's his strength look like? All of that stuff, which
Are you in pain?
are you
Uh,
in pain that you can't do at a mound visit, but certainly in the dugout, a coach or an assistant coach can run that player through those tests, just as if he was on a football field and he got concussed, right? There are tests that you run through to make sure that you can put them back on the field. It's not an arbitrary number. There's actually physical and mental cognitive tests. There needs to be one in baseball, especially at the youth pitching level. We have to develop something that would be how's your flexion strength, how's your range of motion, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are, and I'll kind of read this stat off, and this is just from some research on pitching. So the optimal strength ratio of shoulder external rotation versus internal rotation is huge for optimal performance and injury prevention of the elbow and shoulder, specifically the elbow. So you want a 66% strength ratio from external rotation to internal rotation. The internal rotators are going to be stronger than the external rotators. So yeah, you can measure that, outside of the game before you throw with a handheld dynamometer, digital dynamometer, and see, hey, are you there or are you not? And if somebody's having pain, I don't like to throw them anyway, right? Um, but I think that's a really good measure that's kind of been researched. So can you test that in game is my question. I don't think that that's been researched. So if you start a game, and this is my question, if you start a game and you're near that 66% ratio, okay, you're good. Let's go start. And then you hit the second inning and you see, oh, we're laboring a little bit, and then you go in and you see it down to 40. Well, that's gonna put you at a significantly higher risk for injury to your elbow
Yeah,
or
I think they got to come out. I mean,
and or shoulder. You got to come
yeah,
out.
and you
So,
don't,
and then could you possibly do some treatment? I mean, not everybody's going to have a PT on board, especially in youth sports, but um, could you teach them to maybe do a trigger point release of the external rotators, and that number may jump back up and say, okay, well, that's good. It's not just fatigue. So my question is it fatigue or is it inhibition? Right. And so
yep.
if you can test, treat, retest, and get back to that 66%, okay, we're just inhibited, we're fine, right? But if not, then it's true fatigue and they need to come out.
Yeah, I mean, you can even do, I mean, it's simple. I've found, I'm sure you have, just doing a bunch of seated scapular depression exercises is going to increase your external rotation strength. I mean,
Yeah.
the kids sit on the bench and even at the major league level, and they just sit there with the jacket on. What
Hmm.
does that do? Zero, right? I mean,
Right.
it takes, I mean, I'm doing scapular depression right now. Do you know how many you can do between innings that would help your arm when you went back out there to fire up the big muscles, right? Do some squats. You could do a piriformis stretch. Like it just seems like they should be in active rest rather than
Yeah.
absolute complete rest. Because baseball is start to full or stop to full speed, to stop to full speed,
Yeah.
and there's just so many injuries, and not just on the pitchers because of that, right? You're just going from sitting to moving as fast as you can. And I just think that that's the body's just not designed to do that, right? And there's no reason why you can't be doing little isometrics, little movements back and forth to
Yeah.
keep that arm
Just some
moving.
assessments. Just, hey,
Right.
do I have hey, is this tender back here on my infraspinatus and teres? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's really sore. Okay. Well, let's do a release with a lacrosse ball on the wall of the dugout.
Yeah. Or if they
Is
have
that
those,
better now? Oh, is my
right.
strength better now? Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Go back out.
Yeah. Or I mean, some, if you can, to me, if these teams can afford $500 bats, right?
Mm.
Metal bats, and you can afford a $200 percussion thing, right? To save your team,
Right.
that could be done. Your buddy could be doing that to the back of your shoulder between
Yeah.
innings. The assistant coach can be doing that. We just have to take a more active role in keeping arms healthy, and an arbitrary pitch count number is a help, but it should not be the measure that it is today. It's just a number. That's all it
Right.
is. You
Yeah.
know.
And so I'll throw out another stat that's based on the same research of external rotation strength because it's, obviously shoulder external rotation strength plays a huge role in shoulder and elbow injury prevention. So greater than 18 pounds of force in shoulder, excuse me, less than 18 pounds of force in shoulder external rotation, you have a 4.11 times greater odds of getting injured if it's less than 18 pounds. If you just bump that up to 22 pounds, which is only 4 pounds higher, you reduce the risk of injury by half.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just for people who might be like, what did he just say? So
Right.
explain that as if I'm a third grader.
Yeah. So if you have, and you can buy these little handheld dynamometers that I can say, hey, hold, don't let me move. You're kind of pushing to me as hard as you can. That's going to put out a reading. It's going to tell you how many pounds of force that is,
Hmm.
right? Until they fail, right? And so if you have less than 18 pounds, and I don't, this is probably for a more maturely developed athlete, right? Those numbers. If you're dealing with a kid, those numbers are probably going to be a little bit lower. So you have to
Hmm.
pay more attention to the 66% ratio. But this showed that if that number is 18 pounds or less than 18 pounds, that increases your risk of elbow or shoulder injury four times.
That's phenomenal. Now, again, how are these people? I'm always into this because I like to pull apart these studies.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, were they seated? Were they standing? Like, how was that's the only thing is like, I've seen a lot of these dynamometers are lying down up against a wall. Well, no one lies down up against a wall to throw a baseball. So how are they positioned?
Yeah.
And can we replicate that position in a dugout and get the same results?
That I don't know. I have to go back and read. But I would like to test it in a standing position because that's how we're functioning, right?
Correct. Yep.
Or how I would like to see it tested. But just based on that study, if this just that 4 pound increase in external rotation strength from 18 to 22 reduces your odds by half.
That's awesome. Now let's just say we had a full budget and we have this. What would you do if you were a coach in that and you had that reading? What would you do to get that up in, I don't know, 12 minutes that you might be on the bench?
Yeah, I mean, I think doing some activation exercises, just everybody's got J bands. So I know some people don't like them, some people do like them, but I think it's a great muscle activation tool, right? To get the external rotators
So would you
activated.
do external rotation? Would you do
Yeah, just
rows? Would you do
just some,
all, whole thing? Yeah.
yeah, I would probably just go through like 10 to 15 reps of my warm up routine, which would consist of scalper depression exercises and banded external rotation, standing, and see if we can't jump that number up or get that ratio closer to that 66% if
Something
it's
very
not
simple.
there. Yeah.
And parents, I can guarantee if you did that, you would get some positive change that you would not get sitting on your buttocks in the dugout, right? And
Right.
that's with your warm-up jacket or your sweatshirt or hanging on the fence cheering your buddy. So there just needs to be much more proactive, less reactive. We need a plan. The pitching plan could also include not only who's going to pitch when, but what they're going to do between innings, right? I
Hmm.
mean, like there could be stuff that they can do between innings to keep them to keep them healthy. We just have to be thinking more outside the box and thinking more on the preventative end and thinking of an arbitrary number.
Yep. It's kind of like I said, I think we've, talked about this in a previous episode where I don't like the word rest. I like the word active recovery. And that's not just after the game, that can be in game as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a
Between
fantastic point.
innings. So we're not resting between, we're not sitting on the dugout with, you know, jacket on, or not even just sitting there. But if you're, go in and do some activation exercises, or, do some assessment to see where you're at.
Yeah.
I think that could play a huge role in injury prevention.
Yep, simple movement exercises, scapular depression, just moving that arm rather than letting it,
Good.
in your jacket, and then you go out and throw 6 pitches at 70% and then the next inning in as hard as you can. It doesn't make sense to keep a human body healthy in that manner. We just need to start doing things drastically different, or the injury rate is going to continue and continue to rise.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, Clay, thanks again. Another great show. Parents,
Oh,
I know we've got a lot of feedback. I know people are watching the show. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. I hear people, oh, I heard your episode on Little League Elbow. I heard your episode on scapular depression. So each week we're going to try to bring things to the table that you can use in real time, that are real problems, to help kids stay healthy. That is our job. So
absolutely. Thanks,
th
guys.
thank you.